You know how hard it is to do things unanimously in Washington? Well, it's not that hard when you do the right thing and when you're talking about one thing that everybody, I think, agrees on. And that's that infrastructure is critical to our safety, to our security, to the efficient movement of goods and services, to our entire economy, to our quality of life, as well as our standard of living. And I'm grateful that we have a secretary that understands that as well. Now, I have to tell you, when Pete Buttigieg came before the committee during his confirmation hearings, that's when a lot of parties saw that during a lot of this, we were going through some inflation challenges, right? We had a supercharged demand side of our economy. And when it came time for the bipartisan infrastructure bill to be debated on the national stage, there were a lot of people, well-intentioned as they might have been.
All of the work that he and everyone on the fire department and everybody among the first responders here are doing, because that's a big part of why this project is so important. And I know how much is expected of America's first responders. We expect you to just get it done no matter what. Hopefully this can make it just a little easier for you to meet that important mission. Lieutenant Governor Tammy Miller, honored to have you here, and I hope you'll bring our greetings to the governor, who I always enjoy discussing infrastructure with, and to be joined by legislators and state leaders who understand the importance of infrastructure is everything when it comes to getting this done. Because so much of the most important elements of how the funding works and how the decisions are made really relies on state government. So we appreciate your work, and also, though we won't get to see and discuss it today, that drone work that you mentioned is also something that has North Dakota very much on the national and international map. And I'm just really happy to be here and have a chance to see this community, to see the university, to see a little bit of the city, and to see that kind of pride that people take in a community that has come together, that's been through a lot. I'll be honest, the first time I ever heard of the name of Grand Forks was when you had those terrible floods in the 1990s, and the whole nation paused to see how you would get out of that, how you would recover, how you would lift each other up and build a better future. And now you're living in that better future that you helped each other toward, and we're trying to make the future even brighter. The mayor let me know that the 42nd Street rail crossing is something the community here has been working on addressing since 1991. I think I was getting ready for fourth grade in 1991. And with good reason. This is a site of 69 crashes, 12 injuries, one vehicle train collision just in the last 5 years. And the university has made clear the concerns about the lack of a safe crossing for students walking or biking near here. So there's a big concern about safety and a big concern about quality of life. Those minutes, sometimes way too many minutes, that these crossings cross people when there's a slowed train or a stalled train blocking this passage, that affects quality of life for everybody. It is an economic impact. It is convenience, but it's a lot more than convenience. This crossing is blocked by trains about 2.5 hours a day. Do we have one arriving right on cue? All right, good. Well, I'm sure we ordered that up. And then you're waiting 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes ticking by while wherever you need to be, you've got loved ones or school or your coworkers or your boss or just your home sitting on the other side of that train, which is obviously a problem for drivers and pedestrians alike, and a huge problem for the emergency responders. Recently, we set up a capability department to collect information from communities to report to us when they have blocked crossings. And that is a portrait of so many communities, especially small here, has received more complaints about it than any other in the state of North Dakota. It has been a long time in the making. And I know from my experience as Mayor of South Bend, the frustration of feeling like a solution is so clear, but the project is, for lack of a better word, stuck. So fixing this rail crossing was a good idea back in 1991. It's an even better idea now, given the increase in traffic and the growth that's taking place in this community. And that reflects part of what we have been trying to aim at with our whole approach here. An approach that was written into the law, as the senator described how it was shaped with that bipartisan cooperation. And that's the recognition that we're not going to sit in headquarters in Washington, but more of the funding should. And now it is. So on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration, I'm thrilled to be here to announce $30 million to help you build this underpass and get drivers and pedestrians safely under this rail line without having to cross it at all. Because as the fire chief noted, this 42nd Street project means that there's not even the possibility of a collision between the trains and the 15,000 vehicles that drive in the area of this intersection every day. And there's no waiting for the train to pass when you need to get to UND or need to get to the hospital or to work or home. And it's going to include a 10-foot wide path for people walking and biking, something that would be important in any community, but certainly in a university community. And again, that's a safety issue as well as quality of life. That means safer travel for Grand Forks residents. It means lots of time back in people's days. It means faster response times for those fire and EMS crews. And it means a higher quality of life across this area. It also importantly means better movement of goods by truck and rail, which is a win for businesses and families across North Dakota. Because you don't have to live anywhere near North Dakota to feel the impact anytime things are not as fluid as they ought to be, fixing this rail crossing. And I want to emphasize, this is one of more than 400 different rail crossings as part of those 63 projects in 32 states that we are addressing with today's fund. These awards total $500 million, and they are the first awards in the first ever federal program that exists specifically for the purpose of improving or removing railroad crossings, which are the sites of about 2,000 rail vehicle crashes every year nationwide. This program was created by President Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law, and I want to share a few other examples of how it's serving Americans or country. In Houston, in Texas, in a neighborhood where we've got, through that blocked crossing portal I mentioned, reports of more than 850 incidents of train blockages this year alone, we're funding the construction of a 9,000-foot sealed corridor and constructing 4 underpasses so that people can move safely and without delay. In Fostoria, Ohio, there's a neighborhood that they call the Iron Triangle because of the way it's hemmed in by railroad tracks on 3 sides. There are times when trains completely cut off that community from the rest of the world. So we're building a bridge that will allow first responders and residents to travel in and out safely and reliably. In Pelham, Alabama, a stalled train or slow-moving train can cut off first responders, drivers, and pedestrians from one half of the community from even getting to the other half. So we're constructing a bridge with a pedestrian path that will reconnect the city. Grants across the country, across North Dakota, improving highways and bridges, trains and transit, ports and airports, and in this case, by the way, also helping to modernize bus facilities for Grand Forks, something else the mayor and I talked about during our tour. Improvements to Grand Forks International Airport, which I had the pleasure of arriving at earlier today, and of course helping us make it possible to fix this rail crossing. So I think there's something poetic about the fact that Republicans and Democrats cross the aisle in order to work together so that pedestrians and vehicles will be able to cross this 42nd Street intersection safely at the same time that freight trains are moving through this corridor, bringing North Dakota's products to the world and bringing America's products across the country from one end to the other. This is what getting things done looks like. This is what bipartisan cooperation can yield. And this is exactly why we are so focused on investing in America. Let me close just by addressing myself to the students, because I see a lot of young people here from the TRIO program, Upward Bound, and I know from my own experience in my hometown in Indiana how important of a program that is. I want you to know that pretty soon we're going to have a cabinet meeting where I'll be sitting with the other secretaries at the table with the president, and he'll be asking us about the progress we've been making in our area. So he'll be asking us about how we're doing with the funding that the senator and his colleagues helped make possible for us to authorize and have to do things like fix a railroad crossing or fix a bridge or have a better airport. And the whole point of this, I hope you understand, is to make sure that you can succeed in whatever it is you're setting out to do. You are going to see through the end of this currently young century. And one of the big questions that will be resolved in the 21st century in the world is whether America will continue leading the way. And America's success will depend on your success. And your success, whether that's going to depend in part on the drone infrastructure that is being built up, or whether it's your ability to get to class safely, not having to deal with the block crossing at 42nd Street, is part of what's at stake in this infrastructure funding that might seem a little bit remote, seem like a faraway Washington project, but it's designed to make a difference right here in your everyday life. We are rooting for you, and we are putting our money where our mouth is with help from the state and federal and local leaders that you see here assembled today. So I'm glad you could be part of this. And with that, and with one more very heartfelt thanks for the very warm welcome you've offered to us, I believe we have a little bit of time for media questions about the project, which my colleague Alexander will quarterback from over on the side there. Well, Grand Forks has a lot to be proud of in terms of the collaboration that made this project possible. The mayor and I were discussing the skin in the game that exists from those state and local efforts alongside the federal dollars that's going to help make this project finally possible. I think there's something very moving about the fact that this project has been something the communities wanted to get done since the early 1990s, because I think that's symbolic of America's decades-long need to do better by our infrastructure, which is one of the reasons why we're so thankful for the bipartisan cooperation, the Republicans and Democrats like Senator Kramer and your delegation members and others who came together to get this done. And I'll add on a personal note that I'm pretty excited to have had this occasion to come see North Dakota, because it's been on my list for quite a while.
Secretary, thank you for coming to Grand Forks. We appreciate it. Of all the projects receiving funding, where does this rank for distributed dollars? Like, is this toward the top, or this project receive the most, or where is it compared to all the other projects that receive funding?
Yeah, with $30 million, this is definitely on the larger end of the 63 projects we announced. Now, not all of them are for full construction. Some of them are just helping communities do the planning they need to do. And that's important too. Those might not look as big because they'll be in the six figures, but what they mean is a community that maybe doesn't have it all figured out, maybe hasn't been working on it for 30 years, but knows, hey, this corner is just a problem or a pain point or a danger. And we need to start doing the engineering and hire the firm. And this is definitely one that stands out. That's part of why I'm here. And again, I want to emphasize, this is a very competitive process. Even with the funding that we have right now, more than $2 billion worth of applications for just about a quarter of that in terms of the funding we were announcing today. Although I'll also add, I'm sure we'll get a lot of healthy applications next year, including some of the ones that came close but didn't quite make the cut this time around.
Questions we have?
All right. Well, again, any more media questions?
What's the timeline for completion?
So for that, I'll have to refer you to the project sponsors. Typically what will happen now is a couple of things will happen in parallel. There will be work here on the community side and with the project sponsors to line up all the pieces, and then we'll be making sure that the permitting stays on track so that we can move relatively quickly from today's big news to the money actually officially moving. If all goes well, I would expect by next year we will have made a lot of progress through all of those stages and be able to move toward the construction phase. And obviously, as a former mayor, I'm sure Mayor Bochensky will agree, the only thing that's better than an announcement that something's going to happen is the ribbon cutting when you actually get it done. And we'll be excited to see that happen too as soon as it can. Yep. Sorry, I didn't quite hear the question.
The stopping of the Chinese investment in Grand Forks, do you think is that the right thing?
I'm here to talk about our investment in Grand Forks. So I don't know what anybody else is up to, but I know the President of the United States is committed to making sure that the taxpayer dollars that we've been instrumental, the proportions of which we've not seen in my lifetime, is making the difference we needed to make in terms of American jobs and in terms of supply chain fluidity, and that's why we're here. All right. Thanks again for the really warm welcome here. Appreciate it.